Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to those who are joining in for the live, as well as those who probably would be joining and watching us later on. Welcome to everyone. So, really excited to have this particular episode of Alternate Ways of Connecting with Nature. I'm Vaishnavi, I'll be your host, and the entire series of alternate ways of connecting with nature was an endeavor for us to spread information of how people can connect with nature in different ways beyond the ones which are known. So all of us know we could connect to nature through gardening or through photography, or we travel to places which are all nature based places and things like that. So we thought that there are so many people who have connected to nature in other non-cognitive ways and non-intellectual ways, and somehow some of them have also made that as a career choice. Organically it has become an offbeat profession. So this particular series is to connect to all of those people, along with sharing my own experiences also of how we can connect to nature at a deeper level. We've completed around 4 episodes. For those who would want to watch it, you can go to our IGTV profile and have a look. We spoke about how we can connect with natural colors, how we can connect with wild edibles, or what adventure therapy is, and how mental health and mental well-being can also be taken care of by nature. And today I'm very excited to have someone who I really dearly respect, Manjari, who's going to be sharing with us about animal communication. Let me just add Manjari into this somehow. Yeah. Yeah, so while Manjari is coming on, I'll just share. Hey, there you are. Hi,
Good
Manjari.
evening. Good
Good
evening.
evening. So good to see you after so long.
Likewise.
I was just about to introduce you. So Manjari, I would say, is an expert in animal communication, and I think she's a pioneer in India, I would say, to really start off the ball rolling as far as animal communication is concerned. Having attended a workshop around, I don't know, 3 or 4 years back, it really changed my life. I was never really an animal person, but after being with her, knowing her, and what work she does, it really changed my life, honestly. So thanks a lot, Manjari, for that. And I know that there are a lot of people in India who now got into animal communication, and from what I know, most of them say that you've been their mentor, of them getting into this as a profession. And I'm sure a lot of people who've joined us today are also part of, someone who knows you, someone who's been part of your workshop, or someone who's interested in animal communication and all of that, right? And of course, you're one travel bug, so many people would probably think of animal communication only in terms of speaking to your dog or your cat or your pet, but knowing you and your stories that you shared of how you travel across the world and communicate with chimpanzees and tigers and birds, and it's something that really opened up my eyes to a lot of things, and I hope our talk today can really connect to many other people also to understand what it is. So, hi to everyone. A lot of people are saying hello. And Manjari, maybe you could share as to if you were to talk about animal communication to someone who's a complete layperson who would not know about it at all, maybe a 10-year-old kid also. How would you explain it to them?
Lovely. I think for a lot of people, when we think of animal, we think of a four-legged being, whether cat, dog, or anything that's on its fours, or it can be winged. For a common man, animals are either winged or with 4 legs. But in all honesty, man is also an animal. So when we think of animal communication from a very basic, or let's say fundamental concept, then it is even speaking to other fellow human beings, so to say, is animal communication. And it is something that is so innate that it's as natural and easy as an inhale and an exhale. So it is something that we don't need to really learn. If anything, we need to unlearn the social conditioning and get back in touch with our natural innate abilities. So, in a nutshell, animal communication is something that's very natural, very common. You cannot have a switch on and switch off mode. You're all the time. Till you're alive in this physical body, you are aware of it. The soul, anyway, still continues the chats, but it's something that's very basic and natural for anybody. Children talk to their toys. Children talk to ants and birds and bees and lizards till another adult doesn't come and react and teach them or pass on their fears. But otherwise, it's very natural for all of us to do it.
Yeah. So it's just a way of understanding an animal's perspective, just like how humans talk to each other, just that it may
Yes.
not be like in English or Hindi or a regional language. It's just a knowing. Like I totally resonate with what you said. Like I remember taking my dog to the park pre-pandemic times, and there was a kid who just saw me putting the harness onto the dog, and she said, "I think she's very sad when you put this harness." So I was like, "How do you know?" She said, I just know. You know?
Amazing.
And it just comes so naturally for kids with no inhibition. So like you said, we need to unlearn our logical
Absolutely.
thinking and all of it. And yeah. So how did you get into this whole space, by the way, of animal communication?
So formally, it was the passage of one of our dogs that got me seeking clarity, closures, and answers as to the concept of suffering in a soul. What was the reason that our dog suffered so much before he passed away? Was there a reason that we took the decisions that we did, not to put him down and let him choose his own time of dropping his body, so to say? And then I think for human beings, guilt a lot of the times is, or guilt and fear are in the driving seat of a lot of decisions we make. And I think I used to be in that with respect to the animals in our lives. I've always been blessed to be grown up or growing up with animals around us. But with this specific animal, there was something different. One of our dogs named Uno, who passed away through with a certain spate of incidences that got me seeking a more structured, and that's the irony sometimes that, you know, when you say you look for a structured path, it is because you want to find answers to something, then you want a structure to it. But this area of being is actually completely amebiotic and unstructured. So it is just expanding our awareness and being. So there is no structure to that per se. But I think I was searching for some clarity through a structure of saying, I want a closure and I would really like to know what happened to this animal. That got me formally walking this path. And then when you start interacting with people who have been doing this with awareness all their lives, you realize, that's something all of us do anyway, just that we don't attach a label to it that this is telepathic communication, or our very linear education system doesn't grant it any leeway, benefit at all. And then you keep discounting it or putting it on the back burner, saying, I don't have any others who share this experience, so let me not count it as valid. So I think all of us have anyway been walking this path. There are episodes, like in our case, the passage of one of our dogs, that gets us to move it into from a shadow to a space of light in our being. So yeah, that was where my personally the journey started officially, so to say.
It's a very personal experience that really got you into this, and I'm guessing
Undoubtedly.
changed your life too, right? And
360.
for us also. Yeah. And for all of us to bringing in all your wisdom and experience and knowledge through that. So I think a big thank you to Uno for doing that for all of
True.
us.
He is the real one.
Yeah, he's the one who got
Yeah,
us all into this. And yeah,
absolutely.
it's yeah, I think most of us who get into or are interested in animal communication somewhere deep down know that it's existing, right? I mean, sometimes we just know, if, especially those who have grown up with animals, or in a farm, or maybe even in a house pet, probably.
Yeah,
You just know
yeah.
that they're hungry, or they're looking for something. Just through the eyes, and sometimes we just
True.
sense it. It's not like they're saying, "I want food." You just look at them and
True.
okay, they want food. So I think they're there already, just that our,
Yeah,
like you said, our education system doesn't
yeah.
allow us to believe in it as much.
In fact, there are so many families where there'll be one person who is very scientific in approach and the other who is the absolute polar, who believes in everything that is so-called paranormal. So then parallel or other than the normal, so to say, or occult. And say the so-called communicator in the house or the so-called person who believes there is the paranormal or all these things exist is at her probably or his wit's end, saying, I don't know what the dog is saying. But this very scientifically inclined person will sometimes just come and say something, saying, stop bothering the dog or stop doing it, or I think you should just go give him extra food today or fill up the water bowl or something like that. And he doesn't know from his scientific approach, he doesn't know where that is coming from, but he just says it very matter-of-factly. And the animal is actually going, yay, of all people, you heard me and you got her to understand this. So, whether we believe it or not, or acknowledge it or not, it's anyway happening. We're anyway conduits of receiving. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny that that also happens, right? Never knew that.
All the time.
So if we were to describe how animal communication looks for people who still don't get it, right, as to what is it, and I still remember, I think many years back, I saw this video of a lady talking to a black panther, and I think that's what got me interested. And when you see it from outside, it doesn't look like there's anything going on. There's nothing.
True.
She's just silently sitting next to that black panther, and then she tells the owners that this is what it said, right? So if we were
Absolutely.
to, just, I guess humans are such, we want something concrete and visible
Yeah.
and something that makes sense, So
Absolutely.
how would you share, what does animal communication look like for people who still haven't experienced it?
Nice. I think, like you're rightly saying, humans are constantly looking for something very concrete. But we, if I may blatantly say, we're hypocritical in looking for proof in areas that we want, and other things we just take it quite matter-of-factly. Like concept of faith. We just take it for granted that God exists. We just take it for granted that when I go to a temple or when I do a prayer or a meditation of a certain nature, something is going to manifest, or that's the way of getting things. Now, can you quantify it? You can't. But do you still believe in it? Yes, you do. So I think our measurement tools are very skewed. What suits us, proof nahi hoga chalega, but what doesn't suit us or that doesn't fit in well, we constantly keep quantifying or wanting proof. But for, people who are still in disbelief or who discount that something like this exists, they could actually be doing it in a far more profound way, because I personally welcome skeptics more with open arms than I welcome believers, because believers are, they are probably more tough on themselves. The skeptics will question, and then suddenly there'll be this one paradigm shift where everything just turns on its head and they'll be like, whoa, what happened? So for people like them, maybe simpler examples, when we even said humans are also animals, there are so many times where without anything being said between that individual and his or her spouse, they already know what's happening. When a child walks into home, and if a child hasn't expressed what has happened in the day, this parent already knows, as non-believing as he or she is, they already know what's probably happened in the day of that child. It's because they're telepathically communicating. Let's come to something more fun. Say you can't find a pair of glasses or a bunch of keys, or there is a document or a book you can't find. And you keep popping a question in your mind, Sala, isko kahan pe rakha last? Where was it that I probably put it down last? And if you're being very logical, you probably can't trace your path. And the moment you say, you know what, let me take a break, let me make myself a cup of tea or coffee, and then I'll go look for my bunch of keys or my glasses. The minute you go into this state of surrender, of just doing something very mundane, the minute you're doing that, that object has actually told you, come find me here. And then you say, okay, I haven't checked that one drawer or that one zip, let me go check it. So, even with so-called non-living things, there is consciousness. So these people are being guided to go do it anyway. So there's so many cases that this person may not believe in animal communication per se, but may have green fingers, is planting anything the person plants, it grows. it's because the intention the person parks when he's planting that sapling is, I hope you grow to bloom and blossom and, flourish and nourish. And they're unknowingly anyway doing it. And it's just that it's an internal representation. So even the reference you gave of Anna Burton Bach's video with the black leopard, she's a South African animal communicator. And the beauty is, her documentary was first made by Swati Tyagarajan, who was an environmental journalist, who then moved to South Africa, who first started that documentation. And in that situation as well, because if you see, the intent of that documentary was to find proof and evidence. So Anna was made to sit right in front of that black leopard and do whatever she was doing, which is non-distantly. Because that proof was needed, they were sitting face to face. But is it necessary for you to sit face to face in front of an animal to have telepathic conversation? Not at all. You could be wherever. Say your family member is far away and a phone call is not connecting, and you inside just know that the person is okay or might be stuck in traffic or battery is low. It's because you've anyway spoken to them. And it all comes through our 5 senses, which are our gateways. Each of the sense has an external and an internal representation. So when we are telepathically talking, everything we're receiving, though there is an external that we see for each sense, the projection or the screen on which we receive is always internal. So we say in our mind's eye, or I feel it inside my body, or the taste in the mouth may change, or you have visions in your mind. So all this is internal representations. So anybody and everybody who, whether believer or no, has experienced it and has been doing it.
So what I hear you say is that it could come as just a knowing or a feeling, or it could probably be an image or something that flashes in front of us, or it could be just makes us move to do something, which may not necessarily be something we are thinking through, but we may just end up doing it. And those are all forms of communicating with animals. And whether you're present physically or not, it doesn't matter. It's just it's happening telepathically, whether you believe it or not. Right?
Sure.
That's something that happens. Yeah, and there's so much wisdom that they have. Right? That it's amazing that the information that they give. And and also taking a pause here to let everyone know, those who've joined in now, saying that if you have any questions to ask Manjari, feel free to put it on the chat. We'll continue our discussion, and then in another 10 minutes or so, we'll start the question and answers. So Manjari can answer all your curious questions. There's just been one comment while we were talking is Animal Talkie says that when you're continuously talking to animals, at times you get the same answers from different animals. That's also so true, and that's another validation, if so to speak, as
Absolutely.
It's something that you receive same answers from others. So,
Bilkul.
Yeah.
Or it can actually be the other way around as well, that a lot of communicators who are actively practicing communication, it can actually be the exact opposite, that the same animal gives different answers to different people, and that actually leads to more confusion. But that's the fun of it, because you never share the same thing. You say, for example, you've been on a holiday and you come back. You will not narrate and re-narrate that holiday the same way to every person you meet. You realize that somebody understands a subject better, so you will give highlights of that part of the holiday to that person. To somebody else, you may give other tidbits of your holiday. For somebody else, you may say, you know what, I just had a great time. You may not give information. Seemingly, the answers are different, but that's exactly the same holiday the human is describing. And with animals as well, we tend to jump to conclusions sometimes based on what we're getting without prodding and probing further. So those who are actively doing communication, it's always fun to investigate more and ask the animals more questions.
Yeah, it's a constant learning process for everyone, right? And
Absolutely.
it's yeah, and I remember, like, though I was open and curious, there was still a part of me that was filled with self-doubt, even after the workshop, and even after being able to talk. And I'm wondering if, I mean, it comes very naturally, and I still know a lot of people from my batch still have the self-doubt after many years of whether is it really animal talking to me, telling me, or is it my own thoughts and imagination that is creating this conversation and all of it? So I'm
Right.
wondering if you also went through any of those in the beginning, and what really made you, if at all,
Brilliant.
want to follow that.
Brilliant. Undoubtedly, I did as well. But I think my advantage and disadvantage was that at that time, I didn't know of any other communicators in the country for me to go back and say, hey, I received this. Can you validate it for me? And you come back and tell me. Probably having too many other perspectives or multiple perspectives leads to more confusion. So probably for me, though there was doubt, because I had nobody to bounce it off, I used to just blindly trust what I'm getting, saying, okay, what's the worst case scenario? The human will come back and say, this doesn't seem right. Then rather than being stuck, I need to go back to the source and ask the source that, your human doesn't recognize what you are saying. Could you give me more clarity? So we as the communicators anyway are not the source of the information. So we are never right and wrong. Okay. But let's come to this concept of doubt. Okay. I personally believe, let's look at it two-pronged way. First is, doubt serves a very positive intention as well. So if we never doubted ourselves, probably our best would have never come up. We would have been very complacent and probably even pompous and say, oh, I got this. I have no doubts. I have no question. I nailed it. But probably because doubt still festers inside, we go to seek further. We want to dig in a little bit more and find new facets of the very same concept we're exploring. So doubt definitely has a positive intention. But if you're looking at it from the other perspective, as a culture, especially Southeast Asian cultures and Asian cultures, because of our populations, the way our social system is, it's survival of the fittest. And in this competition of one-upmanship, in pulling everybody down and being very conservative in our approaches, doubt is what holds us back all the time. So it's a muscle that has been, strengthened and built up by others and us. In our culture, for example, in India, 10 people will tell you what not to do and how not to do it. But rarely would somebody come up and give you a constructive feedback to say, instead of this, do this. So doubt is something that is a predominant emotion, and खुद को doubt नहीं किया तो फिर कैसे? How are you doing business without doubting your capabilities? So let the doubt be there. I think welcome the doubt, even if is it me or is it the animal? Let that come in. There's no problem. But we're literally one question away from knowing, is it me or is it the animal? Is to literally ask the animal, hey, I got this in my mind. Is it you or is it me? And the answer you get is the animal saying, dude, this is me telling you, or it's actually you making it up, or you answering to yourself. So it's as simple as that. And, in the workshops over the years as well, I think Vaishnavi, as a facilitator, I have grown also with the help of these animals, because I realized that, this was such a simple thing that I could have done in my own journey. What took me maybe 6 months, 1 year to learn, if I'm able to put that in a workshop and shorten others' learning curve by saying, I spent 6 months, I wouldn't say wasted. Maybe I spent 6 months in coming around to figuring something out which is so basic. Ask the animal, is it you or is it me? Then there is no concept of doubt to hold you back, so to say. So, so doubt is good, just that it should not be in the driving seat. Let it be a co-passenger, because it serves a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even someone mentioned in the chat, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but IR Kayan Moli. Just trust in yourself and the animal that's giving the information. I think along with self-doubt, holding the trust, it may seem polar opposites, but holding both of it, because both are, like you said, giving a positive intention. And since you're talking about self-doubt, Priyanka Jatkar is also asking how to remove self-doubt while talking to your own animals. And that's something that I can totally resonate with, because, even now, if I'm talking to my own dog and suddenly she just stands up and walks away, it's like, whoa, I'm talking to you, which doesn't happen with humans, right? So I always have that a feeling of, I don't think I can talk to my own dog. I can talk to all the street dogs. I can talk to other animals, but to my own animal, it's I think I need a form of, like how we would be talking right now. You're listening to me, you're nodding your head, you're smiling and you're
Yeah.
responding, and if the dog just goes off somewhere or starts barking at someone else, like not paying
Yeah.
attention to me.
Yeah.
So, what would you tell Priyanka about that?
Nice. Let's think. I'm going to narrate a quick story that is again, thankfully has animals in it. Okay, and it's the story of a millipede and a frog. All right. So once in a forest, a frog was hopping along and he sees a millipede for the very first time in his life. Okay, and he looks at the millipede and he says, "Damn, this guy has so many feet. How is he managing to walk? I have four, and I just have to prop myself on the back legs and propel and move further." So he walks up to the millipede and asks the millipede, like, dude, which leg are you putting in front of which? And the millipede said, good question. I never thought of this. I'm not thinking which leg. It's just an autopilot that's anyway happening, right? The next morning, when the millipede woke up, he woke up not knowing how to walk fully and naturally because he was prodding and tumbling here and there until about half a day spent of just prodding. He said, "Damn that frog for coming and asking me this question. Whatever was going on was going absolutely fine." And half a day into him wondering which leg in front of which, he went back to his normal chal. But now, when you apply this metaphor to animal communication, as pet parents, we are like that millipede who was never approached by a frog. We are anyway doing it so beautifully without the conscious knowledge of Salah, what am I doing? I'm doing it, I'm enjoying every bit of it. And, earlier, Vaishnavi, even how when we were chatting, I discussed this with you saying we never had pet nutritionists, we never had animal behaviorists, we never had animal communicators, we never had any pet food industry food creators. As families of animals, all these years when an animal was in our home, we just knew what was to be done. The animal would be beautifully in congruence, not be violent, would eat whatever was given, have no allergies and have no specific kidney food and liver food and whatever food, purely because we were never outsourcing anything, we were doing everything by ourselves, right? Even with communicating with our own, till we were not aware, like that frog coming and asking the millipede, ki there is something as animal communication, let me learn it in a structured manner. We are doing it seamlessly and beautifully with our pets because rather than pets, let's say our animal companions, they are guiding us and we are following suit. It's right after we do these workshops that we believe that, oh my God, now I have to be focused. Now everything that was expansive needs to be more linear. And that's where I think we are being hard on ourselves. We just need to be extremely accepting, forgiving, loving, and kind to our own self and trust fully what the animal is saying. And they are sitting and nodding their heads, they are smiling back at us, they're giving us so many physical validations, but we just ignore all of it and keep looking for just specific things. So, yeah,
Yeah, I remember
trust
even I used
fully.
to like in the beginning close my eyes and talk to her, like so that I'm not like expecting her to be a particular way,
Exactly.
especially our own pets. So I hope that answers your question, Priyanka, and even Rahul Kavi, I think, has asked the same question. So yeah, I guess this is one doubt that most of us have, and like you said, I think the expertise of different aspects of our life has become
Yeah.
so much, which I'm I'm wondering if that is the reason why, because suddenly, I think the past 2 years, I have noticed a lot of people becoming animal communicator, consultants, doing it as a full-time profession to
Yeah.
support people who are searching for lost pets. I think those are the most common
Yeah.
people who reach out to animal communicators. So, is that the reason as to why maybe we are doubting our own capability, and we it's easier maybe, I mean, I'm not saying it in a
Yeah.
negative way, but it's easier for us to just, or we think that they are trained better than us to do it. Whatever is your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
So, very good question, Vaishnavi. And I think, in human behavior, it is said that everything has patterns, right? How we do few things in our life is how we do major things in our life. Now, if somebody takes a picture of themselves and only their own opinion matters, life would be so much easier. But nowadays, somebody takes a picture and they put it up on social media. Even before they take a picture, they are anticipating how many likes they're going to
Responses.
get, and so let me pose in such a way that I get those likes, right? Implying that others' opinions matter so greatly to people for the smallest of things, whether it's just a goddamn picture, then getting massive inputs from your animal about spirituality, about your investments, whether it's the right time to have a baby, whether there have to be food changes, whether their illnesses have something to do with you as their human. These are more profound things. Yeah, more superficial things also we are waiting for others' opinions, and for more profound things, so there's going to be more self-doubt in the perspective that we want others to tell us, do things for us, tell us what is to be done. So nowadays, animal communicators, I think, are hand holding or helping or supporting so many families who just want somebody else to come and tell them what they think they already know, or something that they could be doubting or suspecting with their animal. They just want someone who trusts himself fully, to come and tell them that, you know, what you have in your mind is not a figment of your imagination, but this is exactly what the animal is telling you. It's just that additional validation that I think people are looking for. And I think as a collective consciousness for humans, there's a lot of shift happening, just a shift of awareness. And more people are walking this path of awareness because they are realizing, I mean, this pandemic is a classic example of that. We suddenly start reviewing life very differently to what we really need rather than what we want, and start respecting little things in life. Even for lost animal cases, the reason there are so many more that are now coming to animal communicators rather than a general chat or let me just find out if my animal is comfortable is because still there is no problem. We don't find the need to communicate with them actively. Till the animal is not missing, we don't realize their importance. For so many families, hai ghar pe, you walk in and the animal is there, I'm taking him for a walk, or there's a dog walker and we feed him, right? And what else does he need? He has a purpose. And till the time he is not in that landscape, people suddenly don't realize their importance. And then when the animal is gone, they're like, oh my God, I need to find him back. And then I call it communicator shopping nowadays, because families will go from communicator to communicator till they don't hear what they want to hear, not what the communicator is actually telling them. Because the job of a communicator is to merely be a voice for the animal, not to convince the human. The communicator's job is not to, find the animal, so to say. To find something can be very metaphoric for the human. They're finding themselves, they're finding parts of their personality. So yeah, the communicator community is definitely on the rise, and I think it's for the good, because we're all in it together to make this shift be sustained to a higher vibration, rather than where, you know, this paltry emotions, low band emotions that humans are stuck in. I think animals are helping us raise that vibration of awareness quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I totally resonate with that, because even the industry that I'm in, forest therapy and forest bathing, I think the past 4 5 years, yeah, 4 5 years, there's been a massive shift in people getting into this full time and doing this as a profession, because I think the disconnect with animals or any nature element has been so high that, and I think the pandemic is making it move faster for all of us, because being in the house, we realize how much we miss nature and nature elements. So I
Absolutely.
think it's really helping to have people who believe in themselves, people who know how to do it, and are probably giving to some extent to some people a confidence that you could do it yourself too, if you can communicate to animals. So if anyone wants to like build this skill, I mean, maybe they're on the edge that, okay, I slightly believe in it, but then how do I build that skill of being more confident of communicating with animals? Is there something that they need to do, or anything you would
Nice.
recommend?
I would say first, I think even one of the earlier questions that was, how do I know or build confidence with me talking to my own animal, or self doubt, or even this question that you're asking. I think we need to understand that a lot of the times when we receive from any element in nature, it usually is our own voice in our head. If we keep looking for something independent to pop up in our head, like a separate voice in our head or a separate personality in our head, that may not happen, because our house has a single door. through which people come in and go. So our voice is what our unconscious and conscious recognizes most, our internal voice. So animals are using the same door to speak with us. So if somebody wants to build on this more, I would say first and foremost, just trust that if the intention is to ask yourself a question, what you hear is you answering to yourself. But if your intention is to ask the animal a question, then what you hear, though it sounds like your own voice, is you receiving an answer from the animal. Okay, so even if it's your own voice, if the intention is to ask the animal a question, we just first need to fully trust that it is the animal talking. Second most important thing, to be very kind and gentle with ourselves. We are so strict with ourselves, you know, we are taskmasters with ourselves more than anybody else, saying, no, I must do this. You know, I decided to do this at 6 a.m. I didn't do it. Now I'm really guilty and tough on myself the entire day. So with any kind of telepathic work, if we just surrender to say what is meant to be received, what is meant to just flow through me, let it. So trust fully, surrender fully. And third thing that has helped me a lot, and I know that someone like you as well, or so many communicators, is to just role model on our animals. Is not to worry and care about what the world is going to think. And, you know, if I want to scratch my back publicly, I'm going to go scratch my back. If I want to, you know, pee on somebody's object, so the animal is thinking very basically, right? That this is what this is my territory. I do whatever is basic without me worrying. Ki, oh, am I outside someone's house? Am I doing this? The animal will demand, I want to go for a walk now. You may have a meeting, but I want to go for a walk now. So for us to just role model on the animals, not to worry about others' opinions, and to prioritize our needs as much as somebody else's in our family. I mean, our needs are as important as somebody else's, which the animals also teach us that, you know, you feed me first, then you can feed yourself. As in, there has to be priority that we need to listen to. I think these are some of the things that help us strengthen this telepathic muscle beautifully.
Yeah, and someone's also commented, IR Kayan, saying that just disconnect with yourself, you know, just keep your ego away. Easier said than done. But yeah, it might really be one of the things. So what I hear you say is that it's not necessary that someone has to attend a workshop to
Not
know
at all.
this, because it's kind of innate. It's there. It's a very primal thing that we have, an intuitive sense that we have. It's just about trusting and believing in ourselves. But of course, there you are doing workshops, I think, in August also, if I'm not mistaken. So if anyone still feels like they might want something more structured and not get confused like the millipede, but still would like to have something. Because for me, I know it did help, because, you know, just being part of it helps me. I think what really made it more real for me is you sharing your experiences of how, you know, you communicated with some animals and how that impacted you or the family and all of it. So I think those helped me build the self-belief and helped me reduce the self-doubt part, kind of a thing. So all of you who want to attend her workshop, you can always follow Manjari and check out when she's, and I think it's online.
Yes, for the next couple of months at least, we'll be doing them online. And like you rightly said, is what a workshop definitely helps do. Is it necessary to become a communicator? Not at all, right? It's innate. But one thing that probably a workshop space gives is a space of non-judgment. And everybody to say, oh, you're also crazy, you're also crazy. Do you also talk to animals? You also talk to animals. And everybody just resonates saying, wow, we are all woo and we can be ourselves. So the permission, the space grants, it's a space that's curated where you can be yourself and wear your heart on your sleeve and be non-judgmental of each other and non-judgmental of yourself. I think that's something that a workshop space, the minute you get that, somebody holding that for you for a weekend, you can then build that confidence and move on. So for those who feel they require it, then there are so many beautiful communicators in the country holding online workshops now. And even if somebody just types in Animal Communicators India, there's a huge list that comes up. And all of them are online. So if somebody feels a workshop is what's going to help them accelerate their journey, then workshops are definitely available then. Yeah,
totally agree with you. I think the collective, when a group comes together, it enhances the ability to accept or understand it at a deeper level and be more accepting to it also, right? And that's something that all of us experience those aha moments to a larger extent in a group
Yeah,
than if we were to do it
yeah,
individually. So,
absolutely.
yeah, those who are outside India, this is your chance to attend a workshop online. Otherwise, they're all face to face, so you'll have to come down to India. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of things, and I'll just
Yep.
see some questions that people have asked. So Shefali Bharadwaj asked, "Is it a sentence you're saying or a question? I don't know." And I'm pretty bad with short form, so I don't know what TYSM stands for, but something Tyson for letting me speak to my passed away dogs. I think she's sharing an experience, I'm guessing, Shefali. So she's just thanking you, and I'm sure a lot of people are very grateful to Manjari for doing that. And Sanjay, I guess, is asked, how do I explain animal communication to people who are skeptical? I think we did touch upon a little on this as to
Yeah.
how you're more open to skeptics. But in case you want to share anything beyond that, you could.
Bilkul. I think one definite thing that I will add, and I learned it the hard way, is never to have an intention of convincing them. Okay, because the more we desperately try to convince somebody that this exists, the more we're actually moving them further away from it. Because they, Indians, for example, and I will speak specifically of our cultural backdrop here purely because a lot of other cultures know what is to have a healthy debate. And our culture has no concept of a healthy debate because everybody is so ego driven that a debate turns into an argument and then it is polar. So the minute you get into a discussion, if you sense the pulse of the person that they are willing to look for evidential proof and they are willing and open to explore how they are doing it anyway, and that there is, without convincing them, we just lay the platter out and then take what they take what they want from the buffet. That works wonders. So without really going from an intention of convincing, I think when it's their time, they will start walking that path. When it is their time, they'll come around. So I think just leave them at that and just probably live your life with enjoying and exploring telepathy, and then the viewers who could be skeptics to begin with saying, man, this person is doing something different than I am, he or she is enjoying his life wholeheartedly, then that's probably because they're telepathically surrendering to nature or animals, and then automatically they'll gravitate towards it. So I learned it the hard way. I used to make a lot of effort earlier on to convince people, "Arey, such hai, please believe me, this is happening,
Yeah.
you're doing it." And then I realized, man, what am I doing it for? As long as I believe in it and I continue to take the guidance from the animals, then, and this is, I think something we learn from animals. The first is a lot of detachment. Animals are so detached because they're purpose driven. They have no, if you ask a human key, you have to leave your house today and walk out and create a new house, for example. You'll get the money. You create your own house. People will lament over objects that they have hoarded because we, as a species, are hoarders. We have no concept of detachment. You take any animal, they have no belongings. Their body is their belonging. Their vehicle of their physicality is the single belonging that they have. They will bury a dog and they'll say, no, I think he'll miss his toy. I will bury his toy with him. And the dog says, you think I need the toy. Maybe it is you who feels closure, so put the toy in my burial. But do the animals need? No. So I think if we are detached, then we don't need to convince anybody. We just, what is. Another thing is just non-judgment. No judgment on that person who is a non-believer, and no judgment on ourselves. I think these two things, if we take from animals, people will automatically gravitate towards this more, is my personal belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember you sharing also in the workshop that it's not my work or my duty to convince anyone, whether they're believers or skeptics. It doesn't matter. My work is just to connect with the animal. That's about it. And if I just focus on that, if other wants to believe, and I think what you're saying is also once we start believing, like people tend to mirror us also in some ways, right? So if we start completely believing, I think the others will also start automatically. I remember like a lot of conversations, even on FB dog groups and animal groups and all. A lot of them would be like, "Oh no, this is BS and this and that."
Yeah.
But now I can see a shift in the conversation when, the moment there's a lost dog, situation, everyone would be like, "Have you spoken to this animal communicator? Have you?" It has started coming as an advice or a tip for people who are
Yeah.
looking for lost pets. So I think once we start believing in ourselves and the work that we're doing on and the communication that's happening, keeping that as a focus is just important, and not focus on convincing anyone at all,
Absolutely.
as long as you're convinced. Yeah. And I think Pranay was also saying that it's a wonderful perspective from you as to how you do not have to communicate, or you do not have to convince anyone because you didn't have anyone. So the fact that there was nobody to validate the communication, and hence you went ahead and believed and trusted and went back to the source, is a invaluable tip. So I guess that's something that we all can work ahead and imagine that I don't have to convince anyone in the sense of putting it on Facebook and Instagram saying I did this, with an animal or something. I think people will just understand it and just get it.
True.
Yeah. Tanmay also says we just did so much using intuition. It's just important. And I don't know what Nitri Desai, I don't know what you mentioned, and imagine telling someone my family member doesn't want to talk to me. I don't know. I guess it was something that while we were talking,
Okay.
or I can't talk to the one I love. How is it possible? In case Nitri Desai, you want to ask a question about that, or you have something more to share, feel free. Sunny Brooks Stud Farm has asked, how can one have a consult with you for a case?
So anybody who wants a consult can just email us at info@earthwise.co.in, info@earthwise.co.in, and we can schedule a consultation. The way I do a consult is live with the human on a Zoom call. So the family is a part of the chat. So if they email, I'm happy to schedule that.
And maybe once this IGTV gets recorded, maybe I can also put the details. We can put the details in the comment box, so in case someone wants to connect, that's always there. Okay, so they finally have written what TYSM stands for. It's thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, Ayar. That's something that I've learned today. For those who are technologically challenged, this is something that's nice. So a lot of people are thanking you for always being there for them. I think a lot of your students and well-wishers are here.
Fellow
It's always a pleasure.
communicators.
Yeah.
They're all fellow communicators.
As Tanmay says, we are a bunch of crazy woohoo people. Yeah. It's always a pleasure listening to you, Manjari. More power, love, and light to you and your path. So Shefali sends a lot of love to you, Manjari.
Back to everybody.
Yeah. Okay, Priyanka is also asking why animals do not help in crime cases.
Interesting. Fantastic. So let's understand a very basic thing, that when we seek information from somebody, let's say not just an animal communication case, but even with another human, our intention will dictate what the person will divulge. Yeah. So intention implying, it's a very basic concept in any kind of energy work or any communication, is energy is following thought. So if our intention is misplaced, another human may never even share information with somebody asking them ki, aaj din bhar mein kya kiya? What have you done through the day, or where have you made investments? And the person will say, what is your intention that you carry, right? So intention behind the question or seeking information dictates what will be divulged, right? In crime related aspects, animals do help. However, if our intention is, I'm going to bring the perpetrators to book, and I'm going to make sure that whoever did this gets penalized, good intention to have. However, there are far more complexities in this than meets the human eye. So there could be soul journeys, soul contracts. There could be a lot of things that, let's take the crime of somebody getting robbed. Okay, I'm just giving a very basic, quick example here. Somebody getting robbed of a lot of money. The animals sometimes say, there is no point in me giving you some kind of information, purely because this person does no charity. In his entire life, he's never done charity. So his account of just giving back to society was never initiated by him. And so this was universe's own way of making sure that his abundance gets shared by those who are really needy. So I mean, these are just basic examples to give. There are more complex layers in this. Animals do share information related to crime instances, but only if it is going to serve a purpose and intention, and if it is in alignment with the greater good for all parties concerned. Only then will they share. So otherwise, they wouldn't bother. I mean, they don't sit and dig up something from the past that's not going to lead anywhere. What is finished is finished. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
And I guess it's also a bit complicated because what is a crime for us could be very different than
Yeah,
what it is for animals. And
sure.
our moralistic opinions, judgments, thoughts, all of that. Like, I think
True.
for me also, I learned that. I remember a few years back, a street dog on my street. I used to call him Fighter. He was literally like a fighter. He had only one eye, and he would be hobbling around. And I didn't know his history, but a very friendly one. And I'd gone out of town. I came back, and I got to know that he passed away. And I could sense that he's no longer there. So I just asked those shopkeepers around what happened. So they said that there were a bunch of young boys who came and beat him up really badly. And that made me really angry. That really was, along with grief and sadness, it also, like, why would anyone do that to a poor dog like this fellow who's so harmless, who doesn't do anything? So when I actually communicated with him, he said, those kids had a lot of anger that they needed to express, and I invited them to beat me up and to remove that because I had nothing more to live for.
Yeah.
I was complete. I was okay to go away, and that really shifted my perspective from anger to a little more compassion to the youngsters. And I was like, I hope they get to connect with their anger and deal with it and things like that. But it just shifted the way how I would see an incident,
Absolutely.
and how many of them
Absolutely.
said, like, oh, they were such harsh youngsters, why do they have to do it? I mean, all the shopkeepers I was talking to, but the animal had such a different perspective to it, and it
True.
really was, I mean, then you really question, is that a crime? What the youngsters did. So sometimes
Absolutely.
animals are also inviting that onto themselves. So you never know. So I guess it's more complicated to really see or ask them for help. Like you said, unless there's a purpose that might help
Absolutely.
the larger good.
Absolutely. And maybe rather than saying that it could be very complex or that it could be very complicated, I'm just thinking, let's just say that there are more layers to it than meets the eye, or that we have been exposed to, or that we are aware. So if we are neutral in asking an animal, can you share with us whatever you feel is going to help in this, let us know, right? Then the animals are more than welcome. I mean, we have people who want to eavesdrop and investigate what's happening in a neighbor's house and ask the animal, can you tell me what's happening in your house? Who is that person coming and going every day? It is a very misplaced, nosy, ill-intended question, and the animal says
Gossip.
there's no way I'm giving you that information, because of what purpose and outcome is it to you? But there have been cases where animals, maybe there is an ailing elderly couple in a house and they just have a cat and a dog at home, and a neighbor, especially in this lockdown, there were so many people who spoke to the animals in these elderly's homes and said, do you think there is anything that your family needs? It's like a telephone call, but because these elderly could not maybe answer or were not technology savvy, their domestic help couldn't come in, maids couldn't come in, the dogs and the cats were giving information that everything is okay, but I think this is needed. These are well intended, true intents, and then they're more than happy to share so much more.
Yeah, there's a purity to the attention to.
Absolutely.
And Punjabi is asking, are animals attached to the humans so much that sometimes they sacrifice their life after he or she passes away?
Sacrifice their life, or I kind of get probably what the individual is saying. There are times where animals, see, I think other than detachment and non-judgment that we learn from animals, another third thing that I've learned greatly from animals is they're very purpose driven. They know the purpose they have with a certain family. So it's a soul contract they have signed, and we don't rescue an animal, they rescue us. We don't get home an animal, he chooses us. So if his choice to be with a certain family is because he is going to spiritually chisel them, he's through his behavior, through whatever, he's going to help them spiritually evolve, One of the aspects of it also could be to take on an illness for a family member as a part of the soul contract that they have, and in that, what do you say, spate of events that may unfold, the animal may pass away or drop his body. Okay, so sacrifice, probably from that perspective of what this individual wanted to ask. So, and they don't see it as sacrifice, whoever the individual was who asked the question, because they are so detached from their bodies. They say, anyway, this body had nothing to do other than what it had already achieved with the family. And if I take on, they'll act like little vacuum cleaners. They will suck out of a human what they see as unwarranted suffering or ailment happening. They take it with their body, it finishes with the body, and the soul moves on. So it's not a sacrifice, it is an alignment, and it's a purpose driven intervention that the animal might do.
Yeah, so true. Hope that answers your question, Punjabi. And Animal Talkies is also asking, I was watching a webinar where a very renowned communicator mentioned that animals do not come back to the family maybe when they pass on. What would you like to say about it? Do they come or they don't?
Great. So I'm quickly going to only touch upon a phrase that I used earlier for the earlier answer, was something to do with soul contracts. And these are soul contracts. For this soul contract, we need to first have a background of a school of thought. And when I share this, let me say that I'm just putting it out on the buffet. If somebody feels they are ready for it, they can help themselves. Okay, it's not a diktat. If one believes in the concept of rebirth, or that souls continue and we take births until you achieve nirvana, then who you or the family that you're born into also has to do with the soul contract you have. Animals also have soul contracts with us, and it is for different purposes, it's for different reasons, right? Now, in rebirth and reincarnations, or an animal coming back, if the animal's job in the soul contract is already completed and done, they don't see a reason to come back at that juncture, because they have moved on into another vibrational realm than where the humans could be. One simpler way of putting it. However, if the soul contract is not over, then animals undoubtedly come back, and they are crystal clear in the form, the date, how they're going to be found. And there are innumerable cases where animals have come back and the details they have given has been exactly to the T of what had been stipulated by the animal. So the only times they may change a plan of coming into the family is when they realize, oh, the family really needs to travel to another city because a family member is unwell. Let them come back from there, and then I'm going to make a grand entry into their lives. So because they know, past, present, future, time, everything is a flat continuum for them. It's all in parallel. They can see through. They know when is the right time to come back. So do they come back? Undoubtedly they do, if the soul contract is still active. The only times where they may not come back is probably because the contract is over and done with, and another soul might be in the pipeline to join the family.
Yeah. So there are never one size fits all situation or answer for any
Never.
of these, right? Or any of the cases. Yeah. So in the interest of time, maybe we'll just take one last question. Shefali is asking, can an animal not want to leave the human, but he has to due to soul contract? Something somewhat answered, yeah.
So for Shefali's question, I think we'll have to split it into, first part of the question is human perspective. Second part of the perspective is animal perspective. First part of the question is, can an animal not want to leave the human? Because these attachments are a very human construct. So the reason I'm saying let's split the question up is because the first part of the question comes from a human conditioned mind, that how can somebody who loves me so dearly just go away like that? Because we expect constant attachment. But the animal says, I was present, whether I'm the body or not, I'm still going to be present. But we define everything by that body. So once the soul contract is over, that does not mean that they are never in touch with you or that you can never access them. Just that they may not re-enter your family or your life in a physical form. That's the only implication. But as a soul, the fact that it has been in a contract with you once, you can always access it and say, hey, you have taken a new birth as whatever form that you have. But every time you ask them a question, your intention is always when they were with you. That's the intention. then they give you that information. If the intention is to say, hey, in your current life, what's life like? What is your routine? What's happening? Then that's the intention of the question, and that's what they will divulge. So they're anyway not attached, they are detached, whether they are the body or they are not. And they still continue to be in our lives. Even when you don't want them, they're still going to be present and say, hey, why don't and ask me questions, and why don't you seek advice from me? They're always there.
Yeah, totally. Like Tanmay is mentioning detachment and surrender. I think they teach us that very, very well, animals.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll probably end the chat with just one last question, because I think many will have this question as to, are you planning to write a book on animal communication? Because there's just so much of wisdom, like someone mentioned. We can keep hearing multiple interviews of you or keep talking to you, and we would get so much of new information each time. So,
And I can guess who are the people who must be asking this question, because they've
yeah,
been
and some people are already calling you
hounding for
encyclopedia. So, yeah,
no,
so
no. And even when somebody says that you, Manjari, you are the pioneer of it in India. I mean, what you introduced as well. I know it's very well intended. However, I believe, honestly, I do, that there must be so many who are doing it anyway. Probably they didn't have access to the resources that I did at that point to put it out there. Probably that's the only difference that I was presented with. But coming to writing the book, I'm going to be blatantly honest. Part one, maybe there is laziness to sit down and write. And when I've said this, I've had people come and say, "Arey, but you only dictate. We will sit and write." But it's not that easy. But second important thing, I think, Akshaya Kaure, in fact, from India, she's one of the first ones who's written a book in both English and Marathi. So there are, and I'm sure there are others who are also going to write. But when it comes to my personal perspective, my company Earthwise, our tagline is "Leave No Trace," and somewhere I think this platform, people might understand when I share this. I've not shared this anywhere before, but I'm going to put it out there. I had a dilemma in my mind for a few years that I live by the fact that leave no trace in many ways, right? There should be no dependence on anybody. Then if I'm going to put something out there, it is a trace in some form. Do I want that, or don't I? So maybe if I come around that thought and that feeling, it might metamorphose into a book, or no idea. But for now,
yeah,
mental notes are being made.
it's like you're just passing on a message to others
I
and let
know.
them do the thing, let them do the
There are
work.
so
Yeah.
many, I'm sure, who are
Yeah.
logged in, who are amazing communicators and who
Yeah.
write beautifully. I mean, I'm sure Tanmay Manjeshwar, for example, might be logged in as well. She writes so beautifully. I'm sure she's going to write a book very soon. And whoever says, we're going to write a book, I always tell them, I'm booking the first copy. Please give an author signed copy. Maybe. I might. I don't know at the moment.
And it's so funny to read all the comments. People are literally begging say, podcast please, or audiobooks at least, or
That's
blogs or
probably
something.
doable. That's probably
Yeah.
doable. Yeah.
They're like some way where, more than, I think what people are saying in essence is that you just have so much of experience and you make it simpler. You just make it easier for us to work with it, and you speak and express with such amazing thoughts as Angel, someone has mentioned, a lot of positivity, and it just, there's a sense of ease, with the way you speak about animal. It's not like, oh, it's, you have to believe in it and this is the ultimate thing in the world, it's not that. It's just one of the things, so I guess that's what people really would like to receive in different formats, either podcasts or blogs or books or audiobooks or whatever,
I
so it's just,
graciously
yeah,
accept
do that.
their appreciation, and I take their hints loud and clear. And if and when I do plan to write a book, I will definitely make it very public and known. Yeah,
I guess right now the animals need you more than the humans. And
probably.
see, like, you just out there. But yeah, a lot of people are waiting. I'm sure the moment you say I'm doing a book, or you just even put it out there, I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
like thousands of people just wanting to get a hand on that. But thanks a lot, Manjari, for sharing. It's always such a
Thank you.
pleasure. Always something new to learn, and it's almost like each time I talk to you, I feel like there's an upgrade of knowledge, when it comes to animal communication, and just a
Thank you,
huge
Vaishnavi.
reminder. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Appreciate you
And
making the effort of hosting these series, and I think the topics you've picked up are so amazing. I mean, all the topics that you've aligned in this series are very well thought out, curated, and your own body of work is so expansive. So, a lot of love and power to your work as well in this journey.
thank you. I guess we're just being like animals, right? Jo, whatever comes, we do it.
I
We don't
know.
think too much. It happens on
True.
its own, almost like effortlessly. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. And thanks a lot for all of you staying back
I know.
also for this
Thank you.
talk. And you can always, someone is asking if this is going to be saved. Yes, the interview is going to be saved on the IGTV, so you can always look back on it or go back in future anytime. And if you want to share it with other friends, feel free if that's going to help people. We're going to have our next talk on tree communication, so you might want to join us for that next week. And yeah, all the best to all of you who want to get more deeper into animal communication as a consultant or just for fun. And thanks a lot, everyone. Bye,
Thank
Manjari.
you.
Thank you for your time
Thanks.
too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.